integration group at Maverick. And what we typically do is anything from ERP down to HMI SCADA, and then we have our automation system group that would go a little bit below that. So what I'm going to show you today is we create templates and what we call productized services. So what you see today, we're not a software company, we're an integration firm. And after doing many CIP systems, you know, you find commonality and easier and better ways to do it, more flexibility. So what I'm going to show you is a solution that we've put together over time. It's deployed at a number of customers, and we're constantly improving it. But when we go in to do this type of system, we typically say that we're like 70 to 80% done, and then the other 20% is what we have to do to localize it to your application, your facility. Okay, so when we looked to build this, we had a number of objectives. Number one is that what we're trying to do with our customers, as all of you know if you're familiar with CIP, is it's always the reduction of the resources, okay, whether that be water, chemical, energy, and then also because of how long it takes to do CIP to maximize your production time. So how can we, through an electronic system, optimize the entire process? The other key element that we have to consider is layering on top of existing systems. Sometimes when we come in, there's already a CIP system in place, and how can we put this on top of an existing system without making many changes? In some cases, there has to be changes just because of the methods that we use. You may have to change, let's say, maybe some of the sensors or the PLC program. It's almost always you're going to have to change the PLC program when you put something like this in. The other thing is increasing the flexibility of the CIP process itself. How can we accomplish that? And one thing that's very important is the immediate notification of any out-of-spec conditions or any exceptions that are happening. Obviously, when we listen to our customers very closely, and you know, we're always driving toward business benefit. And when we look at this resource usage that I'm talking about, trying to optimize that, this is the type of stuff that we hear. And you guys will notice that a lot of what I'm showing here is food and beverage related, but the principle is exactly the same within pharma, as you probably know, but I just want to point that out. Like you see here, on average, you know, a food and beverage plant will spend 20% of their day on cleaning equipment. I mean, that's a huge part of your production time. Milk plant use 13% of its energy on CIP, and so on. I'm not going to read all this, but the bottom line is that if we can just optimize a small portion of that, we're going to get multiple benefits. Number one, by optimizing the time, obviously you're going to get production time in a day. But as soon as you start optimizing that, all the other resources fall into line too, such as your water, your power, and then your chemicals that you use for cleaning. Okay, so when we look at the solution, these are the key functional capabilities that we'll talk about. It's a recipe-driven system, PLC-based. What we wanted to be able to do is create multiple recipe profiles that can be specifically aligned with equipment, okay? We also wanted to be able to create what we call a golden CIP, just like you create golden batch parameter sets and so on, and so that we can compare actuals to that profile. The other thing is real-time feedback showing the variation from that CIP profile. So as the process is actually occurring, let's have a look and see what's happening. And again, the immediate notification of any exception conditions. What we want to do is make sure that people don't wait and take action on anything that happens with the clean in place if something's going wrong. And then obviously the other obvious thing here is historical reporting. So you got your proof of clean and then simplified root cause analysis. So looking at the raw historian data against some of the actual or set points and things like that, and how can we figure out what probably happened with the clean in place if there was an exception that occurred. So when we have a high-level look at this, the solution that we've put together really consists of 4 components. Okay, number one, you're obviously going to have a PLC. So we got our PLC, and what we do is we follow an F88 concept on this. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So you have your PLC that's executing. You have your recipe management, which allows you to define your CIP sequence and a number of different profiles that you can run. This allows for a lot of experimentation because we can use different profiles. You can quickly test different things like time, flow, temperatures, stuff like that, make some changes to different key parameters. And then the real-time monitoring is very important, watching the process and getting to the stuff that's important immediately. And then finally, how do we manage exceptions? You know, today, a lot of people, the operator has to watch what's going on with the CIP, and even if we have notifications that are sent out to people, sometimes the notifications are not enough. So what we're doing is we're using a workflow-based system that can get many roles involved in the corrective action of any type of CIP exception. And this is something that we don't really see much in the industry, and I'll go into that at the end and explain to you what that's all about. Okay, so to start with, we have created flexibility in using a CIP skid that can be used for many purposes. And what we've done is separated the control using F88 so that we can make independent the equipment and the actual procedures and execution. So we are following an F88 concept here. And then what drives everything is the editor. And this editor over here to the right allows us to take all the equipment model parameters that will drive the execution model and put them into something flexible. And this is where we create all of our profiles. This is where your circuit definition will take place. Using these different profiles, we can do things like full wash and quick wash and just things of that nature, and then control the execution of the clean in place process just strictly through the parameters within the editor. What is really important too is providing you with quick view of how the entire facility is running when it comes to the CIP. If you look here, what we've got is we've got a number of small. This is really a dashboard to give you a complete look at what's going on. And then what we're able to do is take each one of these and bring it into a large view so that you can see a lot of detail. But when an operator would be able to set up step up to, let's say, HMI, you could get a really quick look at this and see what's going on. Like you see here, we got a live view, and you got your complete wash summary, exception summary. We even have a chemical usage summary. Okay, so when we look at the watch list here, what this does is this shows you all the completed and fully washed circuits. Now, what this can do for you is also this provides historical reference. Typically, we set this up so it's about the last 24 hours. But what you have here, what's really helpful, is that you can also use a filtering mechanism here. And what you see there is that we could enter time frames, or you don't even have to enter time frames. Let's say that you just want to look at a particular system, circuit, area, and so on, or look at operator. You could do that. So that allows you to get right down to the information that you need. The other thing that you'll notice here is that this list that you'll see, the watch list, can be exported. So for historical purposes or just for review, you could set some time windows here and then export that information to a PDF, or you could export the raw data to an Excel spreadsheet. Now let's take a look at like your live view. So this live view is all the circuits that are currently active, and this allows you to look for exceptions on anything that's happening real quick on all the active CIP actions that are taking place. You'll see this red here. It's in a stop state, and you could then drill down on that and find out what's going on. The other thing that happens here is your titration results. You look over to the right here, what you'll see is if you click on that, it's a manual data entry form that will come up so that the operators can enter those values, okay? And I know I'm going through this pretty quick because we only got a short period of time here. Then you look at your complete wash summary. This is, again, typically what we'll do is set a filter on this so that it will show everything completed in the last 12 hours, okay? But you can vary that as much as you want. A couple things to notice here is that you can take a look at, there's some reports and that you can drill down into, and also any remarks. And typically what you have is also a verified and review process. So the operator would verify that the wash took place according to all the set points and so on, and just looked at it in general. And then once it's verified, then a supervisory level review could be done. So what we're trying to do is put all of this information in one area to make it easy for you to have a look at what's happened and then the details behind it. Whoops, okay. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so when a review happens, this is what takes place, is it will show you the details. There's typically about 10 pages within a review, and it could be a number of the historical information from the historian and so on, so that you can look at set points. I'll show you an example of that. But you can see here there's a lot of detail about the entire process and all the steps. And again, you can export this. The other thing it allows you to do is it takes that historical data from the historian and it overlays it on the steps and the circuit. and you can take a look and make sure that all the set points were riding within acceptable limits. And then the other thing you can do here is take a look at a view that shows you all the circuits that are in violation. So those are circuits that have not been fully watched within the past period of time. Again, this is like a filtered view, and usually what we do is we'll set this for a period of 24 hours. And then an exception summary. So let's consolidate just strictly all the exceptions that have happened and give you a view of that. So you can see that we really got a lot of the same data. We're trying to provide very quick filtering so operators and people reviewing this don't have to go and set a bunch of parameters and possibly save those parameters like time window and circuit, so on. We're trying to provide this very quick view so the number of clicks that you have to execute to get at this data and to have a quick look at it is minimized. Now at the end, you basically got your validation reporting, giving you the historical record of the CIP, and based on a number of regulatory requirements, we usually produce different reports that would satisfy those specific reporting requirements, okay? And it varies. You can see the content of some of these examples. We'll give graphs, a lot of graph charts so you can get a visual of what happened during the CIP, also step reports so that you can look at when things started and ended and things of that nature. So a lot of detail there. We do customize these reports quite a bit, but when we go in, again, we have a standard set of these, but customers will ask us to alter them, and we have no problem doing that, have that set up. Now, finally, I'm getting to the end here. What we would like to see happen a lot more is, instead of looking at the real-time data, well, mostly the reports and the dashboards that I've shown you, and have an operator monitoring that, what we want to do is get more proactive, okay? So within the PLC and within the historian, we have the ability to look at pieces of data that would indicate that we're going to get to an exception condition, or we've had something happen, and it needs a response quick. We want to try to minimize the corrective action that's necessary to keep your CIP running, okay? And so what we can do, again, is we can monitor events that are happening in the system and in the PLC directly, and then based on the conditions that you set, we can define a number of corrective actions or workflows that will be triggered as a result of those conditions. Over time, places that we go in know early of problems that can happen, and you can always profile those with some type of trigger or an event, series of events. And then what we do is we kick off a workflow, and the workflow, you can see here basically what this is what we call a task client, and this is a backlog of all the exceptions or workflows that have been triggered. And then once you select it, then you got the steps for the corrective action. Now what's really unique about what we're doing here is that we deliver the work instructions to the user here, and we can even embed live data into this. So we can directly hook this into the PLC just like you would an HMI display and give you real-time data. What we're doing here is our objective is to deliver content to the user so that they can make decisions as quickly as possible. And so we have been able to go to the extent of providing live data. And even interfacing with maintenance systems so that we can manage the work orders and everything. And typically this is not just an operator that does this work. Each one of these steps could be handled by another role within your plant, like maybe maintenance is involved, quality is involved, production supervisor, and so on. So this is a very unique thing within CIP. We've integrated this workflow-based stuff so that we can get a lot more proactive about stopping problems before they happen. Now finally, this is the last slide I have, is that any type of solution that you have anymore has to be able to be presented in every different form factor, because for example, here this would you can embed our dashboards and things like that into your HMI display. So if you got factory talk, we could use ActiveX Control or other technologies such as a web page. The other thing is this thing can be used on phone or a tablet, or it also on a web page. Let's say that your supervisory staff or some of your quality people are looking at this within their office and they want to get to it through a web page. So we don't have to install any software or anything like that on computers. It would just be a URL, and you select that, and then it would jump over to that dashboard screen, and then they can start drilling down from there. So it's very important that you've got multiple form factor of presentation. And we're seeing people are moving to mobile more and more every year. It's increasing, and it's increasing exponentially right now. Just to give you guys a little bit of information on us, so we're Maverick Technologies. We do full service integration. We've got over 500 employees and a number of offices throughout the United States, as you see here. Just to give you an idea how big we are, and we've done over $1 billion in automation services in our years of existence. And again, we have over 500 employees, and from a Rockwell standpoint, we have I think about 250 trained Rockwell professionals today. So a lot of capability within the Rockwell platform. So I guess what I can do now is open this up for any questions.
Okay, I've unmuted everyone. If there's any questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, this basically replaces the controller and the chart recorder?
Yes, it could. Yes, it could.
So it will all be electronic chart historization?
Yes, all done through the historian.
And we can measure any parameter that we have a monitor and we get a readout from. Yeah, no problem there. It's just a matter of adding that point within our historian. And you said it could be used as a controller. So what would it take to be a controller? To actually run that recipe for a CIP circuit?
Well, let me make sure that I'm clear on that. We still use a PLC, but we're using S88 phasing and things like that to control the sequence and all the parameters and everything that drive the CIP process itself. But we still need the PLC. Yes,
yeah, I understand that part. But this is basically telling the PLC what to do.
Oh yeah, we basically abstracted all the procedures out of the PLC. We'll put some standard procedures in there that are parameter driven, and the recipe, our system downloads the recipe parameters to drive all the phases and things that we've defined to execute the CIP process.
Okay, and editing can be locked down?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, security, everything's security driven. Every aspect of it, from operator interaction to administration of the recipes and even the reporting side.
So this is interface with the controller, tell it what to do, and then we'd be capable of having total history. And does it store it here or store it somewhere else? It
stores it in a historian. Okay, so there's a historian on the server that we use to do all this work. So everything's and that's very secure.
Okay. Now, is there an annual licensing fee?
No.
Goes along with that after you put it in?
No. I mean, our model here is that we will just on a engagement basis. You know, it's just a small project for us that we would come in, we had a fixed scope typically on this, and maybe there's some variation based on your facility, but we come in, put the software in, teach you how to maintain it, work with your IT staff if we have to get involved in that with them, and that's it. When we walk away, that's all. There's no other residual payments or anything like that. It's a project, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are great questions. I've got one other one here, unless there's anyone else that has a question. Greg, how many installs of OnTrack are operational in the U.S., and can you provide a few insights as to what potential users need to consider in order to implement this kind of solution?
Yeah, there's 6 different companies within the United States where we've done CIP type work with. And then as far as considerations, the thing that we do again is that we'll end up coming in and altering a lot of your PLC program to give it the flexibility that you see here. The other consideration, obviously, to maximize your effectiveness of your CIP is a lot of just the physical design work of the plumbing, and I'm sure that you guys know this. So what we run into in a lot of cases is that if we come in and do something with the system, there are some limitations because just of the physical part of the piping or vessel or whatever it is. So, and we can even work with you a little bit on that to improve that. So it's not just a software thing. You're going to end up working through some upgrades or changes within your PLC and maybe even some of the process equipment itself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I want to thank the Maverick team for presenting and for all of you who attended. If you'd like to have additional discussions on this or related topics, please feel free to reach out to the Maverick team or to your local CED, Royal Wholesale, or CES representatives, and we'd be happy to discuss further. A recording of this webinar will be made available for those who were unable to attend. And if there are no more questions, I'll close out the session. Thanks all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.